For this install, you're going to need a combination of 1/2-inch drive ratchet, 3/8 drive ratchet with their corresponding sockets, 10mm socket deep well, 13mm socket deep well, 18mm socket deep well, 19mm socket deep well, a universal joint, 15mm shallow, and 18mm shallow. You're also going to need a clip removal tool, a drift pin or screwdriver, hammer, small pry bar, and a spring compressor. The wrenches you'll need are an 18mm, a 17mm, and a 15mm. To make the job a little easier, you can use a power ratchet, a 3/8 impact gun, or a 1/2-inch impact gun. Start by properly supporting the vehicle from the designated lift points, either on the pinch weld or on the subframe of the vehicle. Once you've done that, you can remove the front wheels. Once you've removed the front wheels, you can start by removing the two 15mm headed bolts that hold the caliper and bracket to the strut assembly. Once you've removed those bolts, you can remove the rotor. So you want to start by removing the two 18mm headed bolts with the flag nuts on the end of them that hold the strut assembly to the hub assembly. Once you've done that, you can disconnect the 10mm bolt that holds the brake line retaining clip to the strut assembly. After you've done that, you can disconnect the sway bar end link using an 18mm deep socket and a 17mm wrench in order to hold the sway bar end link in place. Once you've disconnected all of these things, you can move up to the top and remove the 4 strut top bolts that retain the strut assembly into the vehicle. Once you've removed these, you can remove the entire strut assembly. Using a spring compressor, you're going to want to compress the spring enough to remove the strut top. Once you've removed the strut top from your original strut, you can transfer that over to your new coilover assembly. Once you've installed the strut top onto your coilover assembly, you can install the coilover assembly into the vehicle in the reverse order of the strut removal. With the vehicle supported and the rear wheels removed, start by supporting the rear axle and removing the lower shock bolts. Once you've removed the lower shock bolts, slowly decompress the springs and remove them. Once you've removed the rear springs, go inside the trunk and remove the cover panels to gain access to the top shock bolts. Remove the top shock bolts and remove the shocks from the vehicle. Once you've removed the stock shocks, you can now install the Eibach shocks. With the upper shock bolt tight, go back underneath the vehicle and install the adjustable height spring perches, followed by the springs. Once you've installed those, using a floor jack or pole jack, working on one side at a time, lift the axle into place to reinstall the lower shock bolt. Once you have both lower shock bolts tight, place the wheels back on the vehicle, lower back onto the ground, and adjust for desired ride height.